They never told you this part, not in the books, not in the plans, not in the promises of the golden years. They said retirement was the reward, the final chapter of labor, the promised land after decades of toil, but they didn't tell you that the greatest transformation wasn't in your schedule, it was in your soul. And the most challenging change wasn't financial, it was emotional. Retirement doesn't just shift the clock, it shifts who you are. And in that shift, the nature of your relationships begins to evolve. Sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once, like the tide creeping up the shoreline, until one day you look around and everything familiar seems slightly farther away. You've walked away from the boardroom, from the office, from the factory floor, but in that quiet echo that follows the end of a career, you begin to ask the questions that matter. Who am I now? What do I offer without the title, the role, the nameplate on the desk? And deeper still, who still stands beside me? Not for what I did, but for who I truly am. In youth, relationships are forged in ambition, movement, competition, and dreams. We gather people the way rivers gather stones, some smooth, some jagged, all moving in the same direction. But retirement is a stillness. It is the lake after the river has emptied. And in that stillness, you begin to see which relationships float and which ones sink. Some people will drift away. That's inevitable. The lunch meetings become memories. The daily texts slow. The shared urgency of deadlines vanishes, and with it, the glue that held shallow connection. But don't mourn the distance, celebrate the clarity. Retirement reveals what time often concealed. It peels back the layers of transactional bonds and leaves behind only the authentic, the rooted, the real. Because now, for the first time in decades, you are free from the performance. You are not what you earn. You are not what you produce. You are not a gear in the machine. You are a soul returning home. And the people who matter now are not the ones who admired your climb, but the ones who sit with you in the stillness, who love your essence, not your output. But here's the truth that few dare speak. With all this freedom, there comes a new kind of responsibility, and a responsibility to rebuild, to reconnect, to reintroduce yourself, not just to others, but to yourself. For years, you may have said, I don't have time. Time for your spouse, time for your children, time for your passions. But now, time stands before you like a blank canvas and the brushes in your hand. Will you paint regret, or will you craft a masterpiece of renewal? Look at your partner, the one who stood beside you through early mornings and late nights. Maybe you grew together, maybe you drifted apart. Retirement is not the end of that story, it is the start of a new chapter. The time to fall in love again, not with fantasy, but with truth. To see each other, not through the lens of duty, but through the eyes of discovery. Ask questions again, share dreams again, dance again, not because you have to, but because now, finally, you can. And your children, they're not children anymore. They are adults with lives, with responsibilities, with their own storms to weather. And perhaps for years, you were the distant lighthouse, always shining, but too far to reach. Now is the time to step ashore, not to interfere, but to be present, not to advise, but to listen, not to lecture, but to understand. Retirement doesn't mean retreat, it means re-engagement with empathy, with humility, with intention. And let's talk about friendships, those rare golden threads woven through the fabric of your life. Some will fade, that's natural, but some will deepen, like vintage wine. Because now you can sit together without an agenda. Now you can share stories, not strategies. Now you can laugh without looking at the clock. You begin to cherish time, not in hours, but in moments, not in plans, but in presence. But here's where the greatest challenge lies, and the greatest triumph awaits. In retirement, the mirror grows sharper. There are no distractions to hide behind. You face yourself, your choices, your legacy. You are no longer building a resume. You are shaping your remembrance. And the relationships you nurture now will be the echoes that remain when your voice is gone. Do not fear the changes. Embrace them, because in these changes lies the chance to love more deeply, speak more honestly, and live more freely than ever before. But understand this. Clarity doesn't come from comfort. It comes from confrontation. You must confront your habits, your assumptions, your emotional armor. You must confront the way you built walls where bridges should have been. You must be brave enough to send the message, make the call, write the letter. You must be bold enough to apologize, to forgive, to begin again. There is power in vulnerability. There is freedom in truth, and there is life beyond the label of what you used to do. You are not retired, you are reawakened. Your value is not in what you left behind, but in what you still have to give. You are now the elder, the sage, the guide. You've climbed the mountain, and now it's time to light the path for others. And in that sacred calling of mentoring, of nurturing, of simply being present, you will discover that the most important relationships are not just the ones you had, but the ones you choose to build now, with intention, with heart, with purpose. And that purpose, oh, it burns bright, brighter now than ever. Because for the first time, you're not chasing someone else's definition of success. You're not trying to impress a boss, a client, a crowd. You're listening to something deeper, something ancient. The whisper of your own soul calling you back to what matters. And what matters has always been simple: love, legacy, connection, contribution. You see, in the rush of your career, it was easy to believe that your worth was tied to your work, that your relationships existed to support your journey upward. But now, without the ladder to climb, you begin to see the people around you not as background noise, but as the real soundtrack of your life. Their laughter, their tears, their silences, their presence, that's what endures. So ask yourself not what's been lost, but what can now be found. You have time, you have wisdom, you have stories, and you have something this world desperately needs: presence without agenda, compassion without judgment, guidance without ego. Call your brother. Reach out to the friend you haven't spoken to in years. Sit with your spouse and really look into their eyes. Listen to the rhythm of their words, the music of their memory. Tell your child that you're proud, not because of what they've done, but because of who they are. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. The clock does not pause, not even for the retired. It only gives you this breath, this beat, this chance. And the great irony is that only when we stop chasing time do we begin to understand how precious it truly is. Do you remember your first love? The flutter, the spark, the daring vulnerability. You can feel that again, not just in romance, but in life itself. Retirement is not a time to shrink. It is a time to expand, to love more, not less, to give more, not less, to feel more, not less. But you must be willing to risk rejection, to risk being misunderstood, to risk opening your heart even if it's been bruised, because the alternative is slow decay of the spirit, of the heart, of the will. And that is not what you were born for. You were born to evolve, to stretch, to rise, to continue becoming even when the world says you're done. And remember, Thomas Edison didn't stop inventing. Benjamin Franklin didn't stop writing. Helen Keller didn't stop inspiring. Life is not measured in decades, it is measured in impact, and impact has no expiration date. So redefine your relationships. Redefine what it means to be a partner, a parent, a friend. Ask more questions, laugh more often, cry without shame, hug longer, speak softer or louder, but speak, always speak. Because silence builds walls and words build bridges. You don't need hundreds of relationships, you need a handful of real ones. Nurture the ones that matter, the ones that challenge you to grow, the ones that hold you accountable to your higher self, the ones that don't just remember who you were, but who you're still becoming. Because here's the truth: relationships are not static. They're living, breathing organisms. They require care, attention, humility. And if you think you've done enough, try again. There is always another layer, another apology, another moment of grace. Especially with yourself. You must forgive yourself for the time you didn't have, for the moments you missed, for the words you left unsaid. You must choose to begin again, every day, with intention, with integrity, with courage. And in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. Be the example, not the loudest, not the richest, not the most celebrated, but the most real. Because the people around you, especially the young, aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for authenticity, for wisdom wrapped in humility, for stories wrapped in scars. They want to see that it's possible to grow older and grow deeper, to age with grace, not bitterness, to retire from work, but never from life, and especially never from love. Because love, real love, is not the stuff of fairy tales. It is the stuff of showing up, of being there, of enduring, of evolving, of choosing again and again, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, even when the world says it's too late. It is never too late. Not to say I'm sorry, not to say I love you, not to say tell me your story, not to say I want to understand, not to heal, not to hope, not to begin again. Because the only real ending is the one we choose when we stop trying. But you're not done. You know it. Deep in your bones, you feel it. There is more life in you, more wisdom to share, more hearts to touch, more beauty to witness. And that beauty, that possibility, it lives in your relationships. The ones you hold, the ones you lost, the ones you've yet to build. So rise, not for your career, but for your calling. Rise, not for applause, but for alignment. Rise, not for the world's recognition, but for your soul's redemption. Because redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about honoring it, about looking at every scar, every missed moment, every silent dinner, every rushed goodbye, and saying, I was learning. Because you were. And now, with the clarity that only time can give, you are no longer just living, you are awakening. Awakening to what matters, to who matters, to why you're still here. You see, relationships are not built in the noise, they're built in the quiet, when no one's watching, when there's no performance, when you're just present, fully, truly, authentically. And that's the greatest gift you can offer now, present. Not advice, not solutions, not the wisdom of your years, wrapped in lectures, but your heart uncloaked, your ears unguarded, your eyes unfiltered. That kind of presence is rare in this distracted world, and yet it is the medicine so many are starving for. Be the one who remembers birthdays, not because of Facebook, but because you care. Be the one who calls instead of texts, who visits instead of postpones, who shows up not just at celebrations, but at hospital rooms, at funerals, at empty apartments where loneliness has taken root, because your presence has the power to heal what years of pain could not touch. You thought retirement was about slowing down, but it was always about showing up in ways you never could before, with depth, with compassion, with unshakable clarity. And yes, the world is changing faster than ever, but maybe your children speak in memes you don't understand. Maybe your grandkids are lost in screens. Maybe society seems to worship youth and discard wisdom like it's yesterday's news. But that is why your presence is needed more than ever. Not to resist the future, but to anchor it. Not to complain about change, but to be the calm within it. Not to control, but to guide, gently, steadily, quietly shaping lives through your example. Look around you. The world is full of people spinning faster and faster, trying to prove their worth. But you've been through the fire. You've already fought the battles. You've already sacrificed and struggled and built and broken and rebuilt again. Now is your time to become the pillar, not the spotlight, not the megaphone, the pillar. Because every family, every community, every soul in search of meaning needs someone whose love isn't frantic or conditional, but deep-rooted, unwavering. Be that now. And yes, it will take courage, because real connection always does. It's easier to stay quiet, to fade into the background, to say, I've done my part. But you are not here to fade. You are here to ignite, to light fires in the hearts of others, not with pressure, but with passion, with your story, with your truth, with the sheer weight of your presence, grounded in decades of living. And in the sacred second act, let your relationships not be based on obligation, but on alignment. Let go of the ones that drain your soul, the ones built on guilt, not growth, the ones that only survived because you were too tired to lead. You have earned the right to choose peace, to choose love, to choose only the relationships that honor the person you've become and the person you're still becoming, because you are still becoming. The idea that growth ends with age is one of the greatest lies ever sold. Growth is a decision. Evolution is a choice. Transformation is a birthright you never lose. The most radiant flowers bloom last. The deepest rivers cut slowly through the earth. The most powerful wisdom isn't shouted, it's whispered from lives fully lived. So let every conversation you now have be intentional. Let every connection you now form be sacred. Let every relationship you now build be rooted not in who you were, but in who you are now. This is not a second chance. This is the real beginning. Because you no longer need to pretend. You no longer need to impress. You no longer need to chase anything. You are free. And in that freedom, you will discover a depth of connection you've never known before. Not the noisy kind, but the kind that looks across the table and says without words, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you. That is what changes in retirement. Not just the schedule, not just the pace, but the substance, the way you love, the way you listen, the way you give yourself fully, vulnerably, unapologetically. And when you do, the people who matter will feel it. They will lean in. They will weep at your honesty. They will rise in your presence because you become something few ever dare to be in this world. Real, grounded, transformed. And in being transformed, you become the transformation for others. Like a flame that quietly spreads, not in chaos, but in warmth. You're no longer part of the storm. You are the calm at its center. You do not chase the spotlight because you've discovered the true light is internal. And from this light, you guide, not by command, but by example. Remember the first time someone believed in you, truly believed you, when one voice said, I see something in you, and it changed the course of your life. You now hold that power in your hands for your grandchildren, for your spouse, for old friends and new strangers, for people who carry silent wounds you'll never fully understand. You can be that voice now, the one that blesses, the one that sees, the one that speaks life into the dry bones of someone else's fading hope. That is your mission now, not retirement, but re-inspiration, not leisure, but legacy. And legacy is not carved in stone. It is etched in moments, in memories, in words spoken in truth and love, in tears shared, in laughter that echoes long after the room is empty. Legacy is what people remember, not when they read your resume, but when they remember your presence, when they recall how they felt in your arms, how they were seen in your eyes, how they were loved in your silence. This is the secret those old books didn't tell you. Your greatest contribution begins after the job is done, after the titles fade, after the meetings end. Because what you carry now is not ambition, it is wisdom. And wisdom, unlike information, is not taught, it is transferred through story, through energy, through deep, quiet connection. So let your life now be a living story. Let your table be a place of gathering. Let your phone be used to check in, not check out. Let your porch be open. Let your heart be accessible. Let your soul be soft again, not weak, never weak, but open. You've spent decades building walls to protect your dreams. Now it's time to build doors to let others in. Because in the end, it was never about what you achieved. It was always about who you became in the process and who you're willing to love with that truth. You see, the beauty of retirement is that it strips away the noise and lays your relationships bare. You find out who truly values you, and more importantly, you find out who you truly value. Let go of pretending. Let go of performing. Let go of every should, every expectation that doesn't serve your soul anymore. Life is too short to carry false connection, and yet life is long enough to rebuild the bridges that truly matter. Forgive that friend or reach out to your sibling. Hold your partner's hand like it's the first time. Send that letter. Make that call. And when you speak, speak from your spirit, not from your script. Because we don't need another retiree sharing weather reports or complaints. We need awakened warriors of wisdom who still believe in the power of connection, who still carry the fire of purpose, who still understand that even when the clock runs out on careers, the game of life continues, and it is only won through love. And yes, you may feel alone at times. You may feel invisible in a world obsessed with youth and speed. But that's not the truth. That's just the illusion of a culture that has forgotten the value of stillness. You are not invisible. You are foundational. You are the strong root that allows the next generation to ride. You are the storyteller, the peacemaker, the steady hand on the shoulder of chaos. You are the bridge between what was and what could be. Also, do not shrink. Do not apologize for your wisdom. Do not hide your stories, your emotions, your love. The world needs your honesty. Your family needs your consistency. Your relationships need your softness. You've spent a lifetime chasing goals. Now chase depth. Chase presence. Chase every moment like it could be the one that changes someone's life forever. Because it might. And if you've ever doubted your worth, let this be your reminder. The measure of a life is not in how many people serve you, but in how many are served by your love. Your greatest power is not in being remembered, but in reminding others who they truly are. You do that now, not by shouting, but by being the anchor in your relationships, being the mirror that reflects back the best in others, being the safe place where hearts can rest. Because when everything else is stripped away, when the accolades fade, when the possessions lose their shine, it is relationships that remain. They are the final frontier of our growth, the ultimate classroom of our soul. And retirement is the doorway, not the end, but the threshold to a deeper way of living, a richer way of giving, a bolder way of loving. And what a love it can be, pure, untamed, fearless, not the fleeting passion of youth, but the sacred, slow-burning fire of a heart fully alive. A love that listens more than it speaks. A love that holds more than it demands. A love that sees not the skin or the scars, but the soul. You see, in this chapter, you no longer love because you're supposed to. You love because you choose to, because you've seen enough to know how rare real connection is, and because you understand now that love isn't something you get, it's something you give over and over, in silence and in speech, in action and in presence. This is the time to pour into others, not out of obligation, but out of overflow. The love you've stored in quiet moments, the gratitude you've gathered in the shadows, the truths you've held inside for far too long. Let it pour out like rain on dry soil. There's someone right now who needs your smile, your voice, your affirmation, your forgiveness, your story. Someone whose entire direction could shift because you decided to show up not with a solution, but with sincerity. And if you ever doubt the value of a single conversation, remember this. History has been changed by less. Empires have fallen and risen on a word, a touch, a moment of connection. Abraham Lincoln once said, "All that I am or hope to be, I owe to my mother." One woman's nurturing presence, her belief, her relationship with her son changed the course of history. What you invest in others now will echo through generations, not always visibly, not always loudly, but deeply, quietly, eternally. The world remembers kings and inventors and revolutionaries, yes, but the world is shaped silently by those who love well, who love consistently, who love when it's hard, who love when it's inconvenient, who love when everyone else has given up. Be that force, be that fire, be that unwavering source of love. And do not be afraid to love yourself again, because sometimes the hardest relationship to repair after retirement is the one with your own reflection. You may look in the mirror and see lines, gray hair, slower movement, but those are the marks of a life lived, and they are beautiful. They are not signs of fading, they are signs of fighting. You fought for your family, you fought for your dignity, you fought to survive, and you won. You're still here, you made it. And now you get to choose how you finish, not with regret, but with resolve, not in isolation, but in intimacy. Not in silence, but in shared stories. So rewrite the narrative. Let the second act be bolder than the first. Not louder, but deeper. Not busier, but richer. Let your spouse see you with new eyes. Eyes that reflect your gratitude, your softness, your strength. Let your children see you not as the tired provider, but as the present guide. Let your friends experience the version of you who no longer hides behind roles, but lives in truth. And let new relationships form. Not out of necessity, but out of abundance. Find people who challenge your thinking, who walk beside you without agenda, who hold space for your growth. Because yes, growth still belongs to you. Oh, it always will. As long as you are breathing, you are becoming. And what you become will always be shaped by who you allow close to your heart. So guard your space, but do not close it. Be discerning, but not distant. Be wise, but not weary. Because the right relationships will not drain you, they will revive you. They will breathe new life into old bones. They will turn ordinary afternoons into sacred encounters. And when you open yourself fully, vulnerably, you will see it, the divine magic of human connection, the timeless beauty of walking with someone else, not ahead, not behind, but beside. That is the gift of this time. Not freedom from work, but the freedom to love more deeply, to give more freely, to be more honestly. You're no longer bound by performance, you are now powered by purpose. And that purpose is people. Always has been, always will be. So rise today with new eyes. Let the past be honored but not worshipped. Let the future be shaped, not feared. Let this moment be seized, not someday, not when it's convenient, not when others approve. Now. Because the clock may have stopped on your workday, but the time to love, to connect, to evolve, that time is eternal. And it begins again, right here, right now, with one choice, one word, one moment, one relationship reawakened, one soul brave enough to say, I'm not done loving. I'm not done living. I'm just getting started.